is, okay, the name of the session is Planning for the Unplanned because life happens. So the session is about making small changes to your course to offer more flexibility and adaptability because life happens, not only for students, but for faculty too. There are ways to maintain course structure while offering flexible opportunities for those who need it. We will also provide easy to implement ideas. So, hang on here, I am struggling. So this session was supposed to be facilitated by Carrie Mocyk, who is a member of the instructional design team. However, as life happens, she is unable to be here today, and I will explain more shortly. And during winter breakouts, Carrie offered a 4-part session called Controlling Your Chaos. The sessions were designed with the idea of providing ideas and suggestions as to how you could add flexibility to your courses. Because so many times we just keep moving, yet often aren't given the time or the space to consider a different way of going about things. In this session, we're hoping to offer a variation of the original and also provide some takeaways, especially some easily to implement ideas. So while there are plenty of sessions out there to improve the learning experience for our students, we find there still aren't a lot of sessions out there for faculty. And that's important too. After all, it starts with all of you. And if your semester functions without major issues, then you can focus your energy elsewhere. However, if you think about time when a preventable experience occurred within your course, with the bright space settings, for example, there's an incorrect due date, instructions are unclear, and that happens to everyone. This session will provide you with a moment to consider the quick and easy solutions to improve your working experience. And you know the stuff you have control over, and in the end, everybody benefits. So the goals for this session are to think about flexibility in a different way, not exactly like we did for COVID. The session is about how to plan your course intentionally to allow unplanned moments in the semester to occur with less hiccups along the way. So the goals of this session are to identify what flexibility means to you in your course, to quickly review the concept of online teaching and learning versus remote teaching and learning, discuss scenarios where flexibility may be beneficial within your course, provide some easy to implement ideas, and offer some additional resources. My apologies. I'm managing 3 screens here, and some things are just not working the way I want them to. There it is. So, as I mentioned before, life happens, and it happens in the most crazy ways, the most unintentional ways. So as I mentioned earlier, Carrie was the one who was supposed to be providing this session. However, late Sunday night, Carrie tested positive for COVID. So I'm stepping in for her. So as we think about what we're going to talk about today, I want to just make some things, I just want to put some things out there. What we usually talk about are things for online asynchronous courses. However, this type of flexibility can help courses in all modalities. The idea is not to start over in course development, but to consider the changes you can add to your course to add flexibility that benefits both you and your students. So while the focus is on async, as I've said before, we're looking at this more broadly from any modalities. And if you have worked with a member of the ID team when you first developed an online course, you'll probably have some of these flexible principles already in place. Still, you might find value in what is going to be in this session. So during the pandemic, flexibility was key to everything we did. But what we did find is that we needed to clarify what the difference between, for example, intentional fully online learning and teaching was and remote teaching and learning. And as you can see in the chart, it's two distinctly different components. I mean, because the intent is very different. For example, with intentional fully online, it's scheduled. Usually you have a timeline for development. The focus is on online pedagogy and andragogy. The student entrance into that is voluntary, whereas with COVID, you could see, at that point it was mandatory, and it was really focused on academic continuity. So they were very different in how they were going to help our students and help us as educators. So flexibility, what does that mean to you as instructors? And you can certainly turn on your mics and provide whatever you think that means to you. My other question would be, what do you think flexibility means to your students?
To me, flexibility may mean giving accommodations at the time of need, but those accommodations are given in such way, and it is absolutely dependent on the situation, but it doesn't affect everybody in the class. It doesn't impact other students in the class negatively, or it's not unfair to other students in the class.
I agree with all of that, Mamta. It is finding ways to benefit everyone. Is anybody else?
Yeah, most of my students are non-traditional students, and they juggle our course content. They do all things at the same time. Now, for us in that type of setting, flexibility means without compromising the course objectives, everybody is allowed to complete the course content and meet the quality of instruction as anticipated.
Thank you both for that, because yes, that's so many of the things that we do think about when we think about flexibility in courses. So again, you've already brought some of these up. So why would we have flexibility in courses? Well, again, you're considering your learners, as you said, Ben, because yes, in CTE, many of your students are adult learners, but it's beyond the adult learners. It's the young ones. It's, again, the traditional age students who could still have many of those challenges that the adult student has. But thinking about it, have a full-time job, may have families, may be primary caregivers. You also need to think about it too in the idea of somebody who seems to be living permanently in a crisis mode just because they don't know how to move out of that state of mind. And since COVID, I'm sure there are students who've had that. I mean, I've seen some of that too in other ways. But it's also too the flexibility also for inclusivity. So thinking about using universal design for learning and also addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion and social justice within your discipline. And those considerations for all, regardless of race, class, ethnicity, gender, LGBTQ identities, disability, and or religion. But you also have the crisis component. One of the things that this session was developed for was for you as faculty. What if you can't be available to your students? What if you need to take some unexpected time off? But also then thinking about the other components. What if a system isn't available to your students? What if a tool isn't available? You know, thinking about this idea of technology is a wonderful thing, except when it doesn't work. But also thinking about the different things that happen when a student needs flexibility because of life. So this session is to really help you maybe think about not only how can you make your course more flexible, but not only for your students, but for you. So here are some ideas on how you might do that. So for example, there are pieces in Brightspace that'll allow you to set due dates ahead of time, allows you to make everything in the course available from day one. And there can be differences as to why you wouldn't make everything available. And in conversations with faculty, there are good reasons to not do this. But then it's also looking at how else you can engage your students by using intelligent agents and announcements. And again, that does aid in flexibility because again, you can provide, you know, those quick updates. Remember, this is coming due, or, you know, I had this other question and here's the answer for all of you. Also, the idea of course design, you know, being intentional in your course design, being intentional in what you provide your students in your course, thinking about the availability dates. How does that benefit your students in having the whole course open from day one, or having to provide just opening pieces of it at one at a time? There are pros and cons to both. I think it really just depends on your content, but it's also being mindful of the students in your class, particularly if you're online asynchronous. And then, you know, when we talk about quality over quantity with course materials, it's really being focused on what kinds of materials you provide to your students. You know, it can be great to have additional resources or provide a whole heck of a lot more detail if that works, but at the same time, making sure that whatever materials you provide are clear, concise, well done, and provide opportunities for students to engage with the course materials. Other ideas are to consider flexibility in due dates. And I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. And then, of course, using Oswego's OSCAR, which is the Open SUNY course quality rubric. That can help guide you as you consider the different ways to build your course. OSCAR is more focused to online asynchronous, but it can be helpful for other modalities as well. So this past week, the instructional design team was in Buffalo at CIT, and Carrie came across this article on the idea of extension without penalty. And I have included the link to the article at the end of this presentation in the resources. So what was really different about it and neat was the structure and, all right, the name of the article is Structure and Flexibility, Systemic and Explicit Assignment Extensions Foster an Inclusive Learning Environment, which was published in March of 2024. One of the biggest findings in this study was the fact that flexible due dates did lower student stress and faculty stress too, without loss of rigor. So this study was done at Cornell with a couple of large introduction to biology labs that have large enrollment. The maximum enrollment in these courses is 432 students each semester. And these are students at all level, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. So in the spring of 2022, I'm sorry, in the fall of 2022 and in the spring of 2023, the authors surveyed 563 students regarding their preference regarding assignments, no due date, one due date, or dual due dates, which is the ideal date plus the extension. And they found that more than 80% preferred the third option. So they created this idea of the extension without penalty that features 2 assignment deadlines. Basically, the idea that there's an ideal and then there's the extension without penalty. Within the syllabus, there was a statement as to how the students may want to use this option. It was just suggestions. So within this study, the faculty also charted how this penalty-free extensions were used by students and the outcomes. And I think it's important to say too that all of the assignments were submitted to the LMS, so they were able to pull some of this data. So in those semesters overall, there was the idea of the extension without penalty was used 78% of the time. And when they looked down into how many students used it, it was 41% of the students used it once. There were 37% that used it more than once. And then there were 22% that didn't use this at all. It reduced student stress because if they had something happen, they had options and they didn't necessarily need to talk to their instructor about an extension. What I thought was really interesting was how it helped reduce some of the faculty stress. Because again, all of this was put in the syllabus and it was written in the syllabus. So it was framed and normalized from the first day of class. So faculty were able to utilize that as they were thinking about their grading and other materials that they were using in that course. I think the one thing that it did seem to help faculty is that they didn't have to worry as much about students asking for extensions. And for faculty, again, that significantly reduced the panicked emails from students looking for an extension. And it also eliminated potential instructor bias in determining which students are provided extensions. There is obviously a lot more to this study, but this was the biggest takeaways that both Carrie and I saw to this. And there could be a lot of benefit in providing this type of an idea within any of your courses, regardless of modality. So when you think about your own courses, what kinds of ideas do you have pertaining to adding flexibility, not only for your students, but for you? And how would you do that in a case, for example, you had to be away for a period of time? So say you're teaching face-to-face and you needed to go into another modality. What kinds of ideas do you have as far as how you would make this work in your own course? Go ahead, Ben.
I don't teach face to face, but I can share my experience on the asynchronous designs. What I do for me to be a lot more flexible for the sake of the faculty, and sometimes for the sake of the students too. Before even the start of the class, I try to prepare online announcements, reading them when the due dates, let's say 72 hours to the due date. There will be an automated announcement reminding them that a particular assignment is due, so that they should prepare to submit. Then there will be a repeat, maybe 48 to 12 hours to that due date. Then that helps me to be aware, within some time frame, without having to bother if the students are reminded. So those automations. Then in some models, I bring in, these quizzes that are assessed automatically, without having to come to assess them manually. So that way, it gives me some time. The system will, kick in to do some of the work that I needed to do. Then some other things that I do, to have some flexibility is also to, give a range for the deadline, not just at this particular day. If you don't bring it, hell will be let loose. There's a fixed date, but there's a range of that fixed date. So they have a time frame, to respond. Then in very rare cases where you don't have to meet that range, I expect, the student to alert on advance that, yes, I won't be able to meet, this range. These are some of the things that I do, to, encourage flexibility on my part and on the part of the students too.
So it sounds like you almost have implemented a type of extension without penalty in your course, because again, you're giving them a range of dates, which again, I'm going to guess helps you in some ways, because you don't necessarily always have the panic student saying, oh, I can't get it in on this date, but I can get it in a couple days later. Does anyone else have any ideas on, or how you would consider flexibility in your own course, or how you have implemented aspects of flexibility in your course? Well, again, I had hoped there would be more people here so we could have a broader discussion. So one of the things that is helpful is when you plan for the unplanned, it's also thinking about that flexibility doesn't necessarily make it easier, doesn't necessarily make it easier on the students. It doesn't necessarily make it easier on faculty, but it's a way to provide the opportunity for students to continue to participate and be able to move forward with their coursework and their degrees. And flexibility also enables adaptation as needed. So for you as faculty, if life happens to you, you have ways to create that flexibility for you and your students as you maybe deal with whatever's going on outside of here for you. I mean, for you, it could be your own illness or a family illness, a death in the family, so many different things that so many of our students deal with on a daily basis as well. So helping helping you plan for the unplanned can be beneficial to your students. And I'm sure there are other studies out there that show that. So I wanted to provide some of our the resource that we talked about with the idea of the extension without penalty. And I included that article in the last slide here, but I also wanted to remind everyone too that you can certainly reach out to a member of the instructional design team. We're here to help you. We are using the help desk to help get those requests to us. We're finding that's really helpful, especially if one of us is out of the office and somebody tries to get a hold of that person. Going through help allows other members of the team to be able to assist. If you're looking for more ideas or other ideas or information about our services, I've provided the link to our webpage. And are there any other questions that anybody has?
Yeah, more of comments than a question. I think, I've benefited from, this session. When I saw, the title, I felt this is a kind of interaction I would really wish to have, with the designing teams. Because like you already know, our students are non-traditional, most of them. And a couple of times, if you don't bring in this flexibility, you spend a lot of time reading their emails, written on a very panic mode. And you could spare them, a lot of worries if, this flexibility is introduced upfront and they know that this wouldn't be one of the things that will stress their life. And the more you include this flexibility in your design, when they review the course at the end of the day, they say very flowery things, they appreciate that thoughtfulness, that you're able to assist them in, through their course. So that's one of the comments that I have.
Thank you for that, Ben. And again, having been an adult learner, that is so critical. But the other thing we're seeing too is the fact that many of our traditional age students are also in situations where they are, like I said, primary caretakers or have a child or have other things that we normally associate with an adult learner. But one of the big things we always need to keep in mind is where they are cognitively. They still have some places where we have to think of them as adolescents, even though they have so much more adult responsibility, and we can think of them in that realm. But again, finding ways to add that flexibility for your students. It sounds like, Ben, you were saying too, that helps your stress level as faculty. So again, I'm sorry?
Yes, that's correct. You're right. I mean, you're correct. It helps the faculty too.
Because it's not like you guys don't have a life too. So if there are no other comments or questions, we can certainly close this session, and I appreciate you all coming and being patient with the fact that we had to be flexible and change this out with Carrie being out sick. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.